comprehensive address to the National Press Club.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Paterson.
Thank you, Mr President. My question is for the Minister for Employment, Senator Cash, and it's a policy question, Mr President. Labor senators might like to try it. Can the Minister inform the Senate of any activity that highlights the urgent need for greater accountability and governance of registered organisations?
The Minister for Employment, Senator Cash.
Thank you, Mr President, and I thank Senator Paterson for his question, and yes, I can. Mr President, in recent years it is very disappointing, but Australians have learned of certain unions and certain union officials that have not acted in the best interests of their organisations or their members. This has happened because of the inadequate laws that are in place that have allowed this behaviour to occur. For example, we have learned that the Australian Workers' Union practice of issuing false invoices, conveniently marked as training, OHS or similar, but what they were really for was to cover payments for stacked union memberships. Those, Mr President, who were secretly signed up included netballers and horse racing jockeys, including the last two Melbourne Cup winners, who were signed up without their knowledge, had never agreed to join the union and had never given their consent. But, Mr President, why was this done? Well, having these numbers on the books of the AWU bolstered their power base within the Australian Labor Party. Mr President, we've also heard of other deals done between an employer and a union. That employer was Clean Event, and again the union was AWU. And in this case, the employer, Clean Event, agreed to pay to the union $25,000 per year for 3 years. And what did the union get in return? They got the names of all of the employees, but what is worse, they stripped the workers of their penalty rates. And, Mr President, just in case people did not know, who was the National Secretary of the AWU at the time? None other than the Leader of the Opposition at the moment, Bill Shorten. An absolute disgrace.
Thank you, Minister. Senator Paterson, supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Will the Minister advise the Senate of current arrangements for accountability of registered organisations? Why is it important that all registered organisations, not just trade unions, be accountable to their members?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr President. The facts of the matter are this. Across Australia, Mr President, there are 47 unions and 63 employer groups representing 2 million members. 2 million members, Mr President. These registered organisations have annual revenue of in excess of $1.5 billion, and they have ownership or control of assets worth $2 billion. That is why it is so important that the laws are in place to ensure accountability and transparency. Mr President, what we need is laws that ensure that there is an independent overseer, the regulator, similar to that for the corporations law. We also need to ensure proper accountability and transparency is in place. If an employer organisation or a union organisation are doing something that involves the members' money, all we say is the members deserve
Minister.
to know.
The time for answering the question has expired. Send order on my left and right. Senator Paterson, final supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Is the Minister aware of any impediments to ensuring that officials of registered organisations are properly accountable for their use of members' funds?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr President. And given the reaction in particular from those on the other side, the answer to that is yes. And it is unfortunate because when you look at the 2 million workers across Australia, the value of the funds, $1.5 billion, the value of the assets that are under their control, $2 billion, and deal after deal after deal that has been done by union officials and employers. Some employers are complicit in this. That is to the detriment of the workers. How can anyone in this place not agree that the current laws are inadequate? They do not provide for the requisite level of transparency or accountability. The laws that are in place fail the 2 million members of these organisations, and the appropriate thing to do as policymakers is realise there is a deficiency and put in place laws to ensure these types of deals
Thank you,
cannot
Minister.
be
The
done.
time for answering the question has expired.